Hello, folks, and welcome to BNC Sports. I'm James Hill. We are joined by a special guest. We're talking about NBA royalty. When you think about the coaching tree, you can look at Gar Hurd. You can also look at the NBA Finals in the 70s with the Phoenix Suns and the Boston Celtics, and you see Gar Hurd making the shot heard round the world. You also see this gentleman going backwards, University of Oklahoma, the Sooners basketball, and then you can even go further back and go into the great state of Georgia in the LaGrange area and see Gard knocking down shots and scoring and running the floor and what have you. Coach Hurd, first and foremost, thank you so much. Happy New Year, and I hope you and your family are safe and sound.
Thank you, James. They are doing quite well, and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you, sir. As I just alluded to earlier, the story begins in 1948 in Georgia. Take us into your earliest memories of the game of basketball and how you got started out.
Well, I got started out, I had two older brothers, and my brother next to me, he was an athlete, so he played football and basketball, but so he kind of got me started in the game. He used to beat up on me a lot. And as I got older, I turned the tide on him. I grew a lot. I think I grew from over the summer between my sophomore and junior year from like 6'2" to about 6'5". So that kind of took care of him. And then I fell in love with basketball. I started watching basketball. At that time, you might get one game a week. And, watch Russell and Wilt and guys and Oscar and those guys play. So it became one of my favorite sports.
Coach, you just alluded to the Celtics. Just to put this in really quickly, there was a gentleman named Mr. Sam Jones. He recently passed on. Can you talk about any comments you have when you think about that particular gentleman? I did get an opportunity to interview him, and I met him at an event, and I understand he was pretty good at the game of golf.
Yeah, I met Sam. I knew him when I was playing, but I met him on the golf course about maybe 5 to 7 years ago in a golf tournament. And, he was one of the guys on the Celtic team that didn't get a lot of recognition that he should have gotten, but he was known as Bank Shot Sam. His jump shot would always bank it in off the backboard. But he was one of the Celtics, along with Russell and those guys that really took that team to another level.
Ethel Knight High School, LaGrange, Georgia. Talk about those days, again, where you could score in the low post. You were able to grow and really expand your game.
Well, back in the 60s when I was in high school, Georgia wasn't integrated then. So we just played all black schools. And so at that time, you had to develop your game. The football coach also was the basketball coach. So he tried to convince me to play football. And I tried football out for a minute, got hit on the practice one day and decided that wasn't my game. So I went up to the gym and, things started turning around then because I spent a lot of time in the gym. And, we played a lot outside with my brothers and my friends. Every Sunday after church, we would go out and play basketball until dark. At that time, we played outside because there was no indoor facilities. So I think that's when I developed, my game as far as, really developed the jump shot that I had. And I always could jump a little bit. So, I was a pretty good leaper. So that helped a lot.
1967 through 1970, you take your talents into Norman, Oklahoma. It's Sooners basketball. Take us into that particular time in your life and why Oklahoma Sooners?
Well, at that time, the only the major schools that were taking you had to leave the South. Georgia Tech, no school wasn't taking any black players. So Oklahoma was one of the schools, and the other one was Southern Illinois that I really, really liked. At the time, I think Walt Frazier was there. He was in his senior year. And I kind of fell in love with Southern Illinois, but my mom decided that I should go to Oklahoma. So I ended up going to Oklahoma. I think my coach kind of convinced her and bribed her for me to go to Oklahoma. And so I went there. My freshman year, we had a new freshman coach, John McLeod. You know, he coached me my freshman year. And, you know, when you go to college, I'm coming out of high school, you know, I'm average 30 points a game. And so I feel pretty good. So I get to Oklahoma, and first thing our coach told us was that no one was going to average, you know, 20 points a game. You know, so the leading scorer on our team was 15-5, and I think I was either 1 or 2. And I never got a chance to play for the coach that recruited me because he was a high-flying, fast-break type coach. And he got fired my sophomore year before I got a chance to play for him. And my freshman coach, John McLeod, took over as head coach. And, you know, he didn't play the fast style of basketball, but he taught a lot. He taught the defense. He taught you know, the fundamentals of the game. And I think that really helped me improve my game in order to get to the pros. And so up until my senior year, I averaged maybe 13, 14 points a game. So my senior year, he released me a little bit. So I ended up averaging 21 points a game my senior year. And we got a chance to go to the NIT at that time. And I give him a lot of credit for taking my game to another level.
Now, what is it like to be a trailblazer, if you will, to open the doors for a lot of the greats who come behind you at the University of Oklahoma or Oklahoma University Sooners basketball, when we see gentlemen who follow that trend? You look at a Wayman Tisdale, or you look at a high flyer like Blake, and he's changed his game and he's in Brooklyn. You see guards like Mookie Blaylock, or you see a Trey Young in Atlanta. What's it like to open up the door for those players?
Well, you have to give Stacey King some credit too. He was there, you know, at that, and the Grant twin when he was there. But you know, when I first got to Oklahoma, it was known as a football school. Basketball was secondary. Matter of fact, we was behind wrestling. So we got a chance to improve the basketball program. And over the years, I think my senior year, when we got a chance to go to the NIT, we got a lot more exposure there. And I think that really opened up the basketball program for a lot of other players. Oh, and don't forget Ivan Adams. He was there too. He came a little bit after me.
There you go. A Phoenix guy.
Right.
Now, Coach Hurd, HBCUs are enjoying a renewed spotlight when we look at the football and the history of, and a lot of gentlemen are going back to impart their wisdom and knowledge on the next generation of athletes. And when we look at HBCU basketball, recently Chris Paul had a showcase in the Phoenix area. Also, you look at several coaches, guys who played in the league who are coaching at HBCUs. My question to you is, when you were coming up in Georgia and you decided to go to Oklahoma, were there any HBCUs that were recruiting you and looking into your services?
Quite a few. Matter of fact, most of the ones in the South, Grambling, Southern, you know, a lot of my high school teacher went to, you know, with the HBCU schools. So they was trying to get me to go to their alma mater. So in a sense, though, I thought Oklahoma at that time was the best place for me. And since I was the only one at that time to leave the South and go somewhere else to play, I think it opened up a lot for the rest of the kids behind me.
In the third round of the 1970 NBA draft, the Seattle Supersonics select Gar Hurd from Oklahoma Sooners with the 40th overall pick. Take us back to the draft and what that particular experience was like for you personally.
Well, you know, it's a totally different story than it is now. You know, at that time, you wait on a phone call, and you know, and they would call your coach, and then the coach would get in contact with you. So I got drafted in the ABA by New Orleans and NBA by Seattle. So I was the third pick in Seattle, around the two other guys. I think two other guys were ahead of me. So I felt that Seattle was the best spot for me because I always wanted to play in the NBA, and I got a chance to go to Seattle. You know, I was drafted, but I had no guaranteed contract. So, and Lenny Wilkins was the coach at that time. So I got a chance to impress him a little bit, and he ended up keeping me on the team. My rookie year, I played a little bit, but not a whole lot. And then I think we got Spencer Haywood, Don Smith, and when Spencer got there, I think that's when we really started playing well. We got a lot more exposure, and Lenny decided I need to change my starting lineup because at that time he was starting Don Coaches and Thomas Sherry, and and Bob Rule was the other guy. So, and they was kind of we was kind of tagging along. Then he changed the starting lineup, and we really took off. The only thing that kept us out of the playoff that year was Spencer got hurt right about maybe 10 games left in the season, so he wasn't able to play anymore. That kind of derailed us a little bit. But I think by making that change with Lenny, that really helped me, expand a little bit more with guys that, like Spencer and Don Smith and those guys. So I played for Lenny. And then when Lenny was fired, I think he was fired. They say we'll let go, but, the same thing. And I was traded to Chicago. So I ended up playing for Dick Motta, for 1 year. And I was playing behind Chet Walker and Bob Love. So I was the third guy off the bench, although they had drafted Howard Porter at that time. And I never thought I would get a chance to play. So I ended up playing for Chicago. I had a pretty decent year in Chicago. So I thought that was going to be my stop. But, the NBA, you get traded a lot. So I got traded to Buffalo, which I think really ignited my whole career because I got a chance to go to Buffalo. The starting center at that time, Bob Kaufman, Bob McAdoo, and Jimmy McMillan was the front line. But Kaufman got hurt. They moved Bob McAdoo to center, and I came in as a starting forward. So in that time, everything took off. We had a very exciting team with Randy Smith and Ernie D joining Bob McAdoo, myself, and Jimmy McMillan. So we had a pretty good run. We made the playoff 2 years in a row. Always got beat by Boston, by Washington, but that worked out pretty good for me.
Spencer Haywood, when you think about that particular gentleman, and you had him up in Seattle, he's instrumental because he was able to pave the way for guys like the late, great Kobe Bean Bryant, LeBron, and guys who come out early, underclassmen, so to speak. Can you just talk a little bit about that part of the game and how special and symbolic he is to the game of basketball?
Well, he finally got a lot of credit for what he did, by getting into the Hall. But the thing that he was going through, the guys don't realize. Spencer and I roomed together, when I was in Seattle. And, he would go to court during the day and get on the basketball court at night. So a lot of teams didn't want to play, if he was on the court. So it was really tough for him. It was also tough a little bit for the team because we never knew what was going to happen. But he ended up winning his case. But the thing about it, I can remember a lot of guys that didn't want to play because he was on the court. But Spencer was a very, very tough guy. So he ended up really, I think, setting the stage for what's happening now as far as the free agency and for the kids leaving school early. But no one really know what he went through unless you was there with him and his teammates. And it was tough, I mean, I don't think I could have gone through what he went through. But I give him credit, because he stuck it out. And, the owner, Sam Schumer, was right behind him. So it worked out great for everybody.
When you first walked into the locker room in Oklahoma and you saw that jersey, that Sooners jersey, and it was yours and you had earned it, and then take us into that. And then also when you get to Seattle under the Space Needle and you see that jersey, that green and gold, Emerald City, and you're there and you've made it, so to speak, and your name is on that jersey. What was that like for you personally?
First of all, going to Oklahoma, when I got there as a freshman, it was like night and day, basically. Because, I've come from a small town in Georgia. I played against all Black competition while I was in high school and never played against a white player until I got to Oklahoma. So when I recruited, we got there, as a recruit at that time, you get a chance to, when you go visit, you get a chance to play against some of the players. But when my freshman year, when I first found out that, I was going to be on the team, and then I got there and my jersey was there And I really wanted a different number, but they, ended up getting a different number. But Coach McLeod, said that you're going to be my starting forward. So to me, that was like, dream come true, because I never thought that would happen growing up in Georgia like I did. And so it turned out to be that although we all felt that we were the best player on the team, I felt that I was the best player that they had recruited. And so we had a lot of competition there. And it worked out good. We had a great freshman team. We had some guys from all across the country. And my situation worked out well because I ended up being one of the best players on the freshman team and also one of the best players on the varsity team. But when I got the jersey as a freshman, I called my mom and say that, I made the team, I'm in school, I'm doing well. So maybe one day you get a chance to see me on TV. And so it worked out pretty good.
Next stop, Seattle, the Supersonics. Boeing is there, beautiful city in the great Northwest, fresh water, fresh fish, just a beautiful area on Puget Sound. Take us into Seattle and again, that Sonics jersey.
Seattle was a great city. It was a really great city. Being drafted in the third round, your chances of making it at that time wasn't very high. So, we go to training camp, but 2 weeks at that time. We have training camp for 2 weeks. So I go there and, had a good training camp. And I never forget Tom Sherry. People probably know who he is. He kind of took me under his wing. He kind of taught me things I need to do and all of this, and say these are the things you need to do to make the team. And so when we broke camp, they was picking the team, the guys that made the team, and lady told me that I was on the team. And it was like I couldn't understand. It was like a dream come true. And he said, "You made it, and we think you're going to be able to help us this year." So, I mean, those was the best words I've heard since I left college. And it worked out really good.
The Madhouse on Madison, Chicago, Illinois, the Chicago Stadium. Take us back and what that particular experience was like. You had some good teammates and what it was like to play with Chicago on your chest with red uniforms.
It was great, and I always thought that Chicago Stadium was one of my favorite stadiums to play in. But when I was traded from Seattle to Chicago, and Dick Motter, was a coach. And one thing I can give credit to Dick Motter, he loves forwards, so he loved for his forwards to score. So Bob Love and Chat was the starting forward, so they were going to score. So I would come off the bench, and I actually had a good year in Chicago, really good year. And when we got to the playoffs, playing the Lakers, I think, and that's when Wilt was there. And so they beat us early in the playoff. And I was looking forward to going back to Chicago, but it didn't work out. So, every trade kind of has some positive and negative effect for you. I hate leaving Chicago, but going to Buffalo with a young team, and we was the youngest team in the league. So going there with Coach Jack Ramsey, took us to another level because Jack played the way that I'm used to playing. We got the ball up and down the court. What Mike could do, of course, he could score from anywhere. Ernie D was the rookie of the year. And everybody on that starting lineup, I think, averaged 15 points a game or more. So we was able to kind of set the standard as the fast break Braves. And so that really worked out well with me because I was in Buffalo for a little over 2 years. And things kind of hit a stall because Coach Ramley felt that we had to get a little bigger, a little physical up front. So I was traded to Phoenix for John Shoemake. And that was another life-changing situation for me. So every move that I made basically worked out great for me. I ended up going to Phoenix and left Buffalo. We was a pretty good team. We was about 30-20, I think. And so every year at that time, you look forward to the playoff because that was the bonus money for you. So I got to Phoenix, and Coach John McLeod, he said, I wanted you here, So you helped me out in Oklahoma, so I want you to come to Phoenix. And I got there. First game that we had there, we played Golden State, who was the best team at World Championship the year before, and was the best team in the league. And so they had never beaten Golden State. So that was my first game there. We beat Golden State. And it kind of took off from there. Because when I first got there, we was 13-27. So there was no way we was going to make the playoffs. But it kind of took off. And we ended up having the best record the Saints had for the season when I got to Phoenix. And we was lucky enough to get into the playoffs. I think we got in a game ahead of the Lakers. And we kind of caught fire because no one believed that we was good enough to be there. And we had a team that always believed that we could win. And Coach McLeod did believe that, hey, you guys can win, just go out and play hard. And we did. And, took us up until the championship game in Boston. And you know the rest of the story, but, we ended up playing Boston. We was down, I think, 20-something in the fourth quarter. No, the second quarter. So we came back, tied the first game, tied the first half, first overtime, the second overtime. So everybody was running out of gas. So we ended up going into the third overtime. And that's when everything, got a chance to hit the shot. And we didn't have enough to finish the game. So Boston ended up beating us. And so it was a fun game. It was a long game. I never played that many minutes before in my life. I ended up playing 63 minutes in that game. And we just didn't have enough to go back to Phoenix to finish, tie the series, because at that time you had to fly commercial. So the game ended at, I think, around 1 o'clock. So we go back to the hotel, had to get up early, catch a flight back to Phoenix. And then on Sunday, we had a 12 o'clock game in Phoenix. So which, nobody had a chance to recover because all of our guys played a lot of minutes. And we just didn't have enough energy to finish that game. But it was one of the most exciting part of my career. The two most exciting part of my career was making the team in Seattle. I got traded to Chicago and then playing in Buffalo with those guys, and then Phoenix, of course, topped it all.
The NBA Finals, and you just alluded to it. Playing in the Garden against Boston, and every time you looked up in the rafters, all you see is banners. Take us back to that experience and what it was like to compete at that level in the old parquet floor areas where you couldn't bounce the ball. It had spots in the floor. What was it like to compete at that level?
The floor looked great on TV, but it was one of the worst floors in the world. But, one thing that helped me, and also because, and I was in Buffalo, we played each other, I think, 8 times during the year. So I got a chance to play Boston 4 times in Boston. And so my first trip into Boston Garden, you are, because you see it on TV, so this is great. Then you get on the floor, you say, this is not what I thought it was going to be. But just looking up and seeing all those banners up there and all those names being retired, really was a feeling that, hey, this is special, and you really try to go out and make sure that you put your best performance on that court at that time. But in Buffalo, we had some good series with Boston, and they ended up beating us a few times, but we had some great series with them.
The Phoenix Suns family, the organization, yourself, Alvin Adams, Cotton Fitzsimmons, John McLeod. You look at a Walter Davis, Sweet D.
Right.
You look at Kevin Johnson, KJ, Charles. You look at all of the guys who've been a part of it. Cedric Ceballos. You look at several guys, Danny Marley. You look at, and the list goes on, and you look at this current generation of Phoenix Suns, Mr. Booker, they call him Book, and he can shoot the lights out of that ball.
He can shoot the lights out. He's got one of the most pure jump shots I've seen in a long time. And he had good range too, but he's having a shot that is hard to stop.
Chris Paul and the big fella out of the Bahamas, who's been able to. Yeah, who's really been able to benefit when you look at what Michael Thompson did coming out of there, and even Mr. Fox. But talk a little bit about the Phoenix Suns as an organization and what it's like to be a part of that family.
Well, they make you feel like a family. The fans here make you feel like you're part of the city and part of the family. But you have to give Jerry Colangelo a lot of credit too. He brought a lot of those guys in, when he was the owner. And also when I came here, he was general manager. So you have to give him a lot of credit. But they have a good background about taking care of their players. A lot of guys, when they play here, once they leave and retire, they always come back here in Phoenix because of the city and because of the organization. So, and they treat all the former players really great. And just watching the team now, I mean, it's fun to watch them now because they remind me of us when we was young. They really get the ball up and down the court. They have a great general in Chris Paul, who's really, I think, is the key to the whole team, because when he makes sure that everybody is doing what they're supposed to do, get the ball where they need to get it. And he is the guy that I think that make this whole team go.
Monty Williams, the coach, how special is he? And talk a little bit about what you see from him.
Well, I think he was the right choice for this team at that time. He played in the league and he coached in the league before, but he had coached Chris Paul before, and I like him because he have a very good demeanor. You don't get excited about a whole lot of stuff. You don't get down on his players, and he always encourages players about what they need to do, and they respect him. And I think that's the one thing that, as a coach, if you got the respect of your players and they believe in you, then they're going to play hard for you. And ever since he's been here, I've only seen anything about how guys played for him. They play hard for him, they go all out and they listen to him. And I think that's the whole key. And Monty is a great guy. I never really personally met him that much, but just watching him on the sideline and how he handles himself on the sideline, how he handles the player, how he handled the press conferences. I think it's great for the guys, especially young guys on the team. I think it's great for them.
The Buffalo Braves franchise decides to move out west. San Diego Sports Arena, the San Diego Clippers come into play. Take us into that particular experience, what that was like. And there's guys there, Swin Nader, even Bill Walton passes through as part of that experience. What was it like to play with San Diego?
Well, I was one of the guys that passed through. Once I left Phoenix, I went to San Diego for a year. And it was probably the low life of my career as far as highlights and everything, because we had guys on the team that they had great talent, but it wasn't a team. It wasn't, everybody was there for themselves. And it just wasn't the same. And I wasn't used to that. I was used to playing with guys that played hard, shared everything, and wanted to win. And not that all guys didn't want to win, but it just wasn't a good mixture. I think we had Freeman Williams, Swin Nader, Sidney Wicks, all those guys, and Brian Taylor. It just wasn't a good mixture, And I think that was my last year in the league. And Paul Silas was the coach, and I think that was his first year as a coach. So it just didn't work out well. It was an experience. I mean, I had a lot of ups and downs, and I started my career on a high note. I ended on a high note because I was still in NBA, but it just wasn't the same anymore.
How did you decide to retire, and what was that like for you when you stopped shooting and dribbling and running up and down the court and playing the game that you loved?
Well, when I left San Diego, I decided to go overseas and play. And the one thing that kind of cut my career short was I ended up having a back injury. I got my back hurt in Phoenix, but I kept playing. And it finally caught up with me over when I went to Europe. I went over there and I played over there for a couple of months, but I just couldn't do anything else. So I ended up not staying the whole year. And at that point in time, I thought my body just had shut down on me. My back was going to give me a lot of problems. And I think as a player, you never want to admit that you can't do it anymore. You want to give it up. And I had dreamed that I'd still get healthy, that I might be able to play again, but it just never worked out.
Now, I was a ball boy growing up in Portland, as you know, from 85 to 88. Jack Ramsey was our guy. When I walked in, when I left out of there and went away to college, Rick Adelman was the guy, and so was Mike Schuler. Now, during those days, there were only a handful of international players who began coming into the league. I can remember us drafting Arvydas Sabonis, and we know what his son is able to do in Indiana.
Right.
For the international game, talk about what it was like for you to go overseas and play and how the players were at that particular point in time. And again, there was a couple Americans on some of those rosters going over to play during those days.
Right. Well, at that time, the European basketball is still totally different because they believe in teaching the fundamentals. There was no really post-up part of the game in Europe at that time. It was pick and rolls, a jump shot, basically like the guys that are playing now. And they were very good at ball handling because they start out at such a young age that they work on the fundamentals. And if you notice now, a lot of the European guys, they're very fundamentally sound. And they have good jump shots. They know how to play the pick and roll. But at that time, that's what they worked on, and it did every day. We practiced twice a day, and they really spent a lot of time on that. But now, I think when I ended up coaching in Dallas, I think we ended up getting one foreign player in Dallas. I'm not for sure. I think we got one foreign player when I was in Dallas coaching. But that's when it's kind of started opening up a little bit more. Don Nelson really brought in a lot of the foreign guys, and that kind of opened up the whole situation. And of course, the Dream Team kind of really took it to another level because everybody wanted to play basketball after the Dream Team. And that's when you see a lot of guys that are playing now and playing then because of the Dream Team.
1987 through 1993, the Reunion Arena, Dallas, Texas, the Reunion Ball, that big green ball.
Right.
You go in there, and when you go into Dallas, you had to be ready to play. And Coach Hurd was there with his clipboard. Take us into those experiences for you and what it was like for you to be an assistant and then the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks.
Well, it was great when Coach McLeod got the job in Dallas. He asked me that I wanted to go with him. And of course, I did because he took over for Dick Motta. In the first year or two there, I mean, we was pretty good. We got to, I think we ended up playing the Lakers in my first year there. In some kind of way, the Lakers always ended up beating us. But it was a great experience, learning experience because I really didn't know a lot about coaching. So basically, I had to learn from Coach McLeod and how he prepared everything, the practices and all of that. So it worked out really, really good. I mean, I was back into basketball, which I really wanted to do. And I had to give him credit for taking a chance on me. And after that, I was with him until they released him in Dallas. Then Richard Atabata took over. And we wasn't that good that year. I mean, we was probably the worst team in the league. And Richard was released. I ended up finished coaching the team at that time at the end of the year. And I thought I had a chance to maybe get the job, but the owner decided to hire Quinn Buckner. So I ended up going to Indiana as assistant with Larry Brown. And that's where I spent a lot of my years after that with Larry as an assistant coach.
Now, what was Indianapolis like? Meridian, Market Square Arena, downtown Indianapolis, Indiana, the basketball capital. What was it like to be there on that coaching staff and Reggie Miller and some of the guys who were there to listen and take heed to what you guys were offering?
That was a team that was fun to coach. Larry was more of a teacher, but we had guys like Reggie, Rick Smith, the Davis brother, it was a fun team, and the practice was more exciting, I think, than the game because the guy was very competitive in practice. No one wanted to lose, and we had a very good team, and the city was, basketball crazy anyway. So we had a very, very good team. We always end up getting into the quarterfinals or the finals, the Eastern Conference Finals, but we never could make that extra step over. We run into the Knicks, in Game 7, then we run into, I can't remember who else that beat us. But that team with Reggie and Rick Smith and the Davis boys, we had a good bench, with Sam Mitchell and Haywood, a lot of Vern Fleming. So we had a lot of guys that wanted to win, know how to win. And so they made our starters better because they would put it on the starters in practice. So it was a fun team to coach. That was probably my most fun memory of coaching, because the Indiana team was a fun team to coach. And Larry was a fun guy to work for, because Larry always tried to, he always dinkering and changing things. So it kind of like he's a teacher on the floor, as a coach, he's out teaching all the time. So I have to give him credit. And also, if I look back over my career, I had a chance to either play for or work for some of the greatest coaches in the NBA. I started out with Lenny Wilkins, go to Chicago with Dick Martin, Jack Ramsey in Buffalo, John McCloud in Phoenix, then Larry, John McCloud also as assistant coach in Dallas, then Larry in Indiana. And I had Larry up until I went to Washington as a head coach. So I had some great teachers. So I learned a lot of basketball over the years.
Coach Hurd was Byron Scott. People forget after he left the Lakers, he played on a few other teams. Was he with the Pacers during that era?
I forgot to mention him. Byron Scott was another guy who was on that team. And we played Orlando for, I think to get to the finals. And he was on that team. Byron Scott, he was kind of like the veteran leader because he had been in that situation before. So everybody kind of looked at him as a veteran leader. And he had some big shot for us against Orlando, to take it to the seventh game. So I don't know how I can leave him out of that situation because he was a key part of the team.
Next stop, the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You bring in a guy like Allen Iverson from Georgetown. Take us into Philly in those days and what it was like with those great fans.
Philly, very unusual city, but it was a fun city. And, then we had Allen there, of course. John, Larry was a guard in the pros, right? So, he was always tough on his point guards. Even on Allen, he was tough, but Allen was a special talent. And he just, Larry liked to try to keep him under control a little bit. But, Allen, the way he played, you had to let him go. And he was fun to watch, man. He could do a lot of things for his size and his speed and quickness. And people don't realize how strong he was. But he was really fun to watch. And the team was fun. It was really fun with that team. We had a really, really pretty good team there. And, I'm looking back over some of the guys that was on the team, and all of them was solid players, But Philly is another one of my favorite cities. I think the favorite cities that I would love to live in was Chicago, Philly, and Phoenix. I love Buffalo because of the team, but it wasn't a city that I thought I would end up living in. But those three cities I wouldn't mind living in, and I ended up living in Phoenix.
Next stop, Detroit basketball, the Detroit Pistons. Take us into Motown and what that experience was like for you personally.
Yeah, the year before they had won the championship. So, coming there, and I figured with the same team, it was very good with Rashid, Ben Wallace, Chauncey, Big Hamilton, those guys. So, I said, well, maybe I get a chance finally to win a ring. And so we really had a good year. We got to the NBA Finals and ended up playing San Antonio. And it was, I think it was tied at 2-2, I believe. And we had a chance to win one game, to take the lead in the series. And I'll never forget, Robert Horry hit a three-pointer to win the game in that series. And, from one mistake that we made on defense, we ended up leaving him wide open for a three-pointer that kind of won the game for them. And we go to San Antonio. And I believe we won the first game in San Antonio. And then game 7, they ended up beating us. So I got close a couple of times, but never got the ring.
The nation's capital, Washington, D.C., the Washington Wizards. We know them as the Washington Bullets, Wes Unseld and the guys. What was it like to coach in Washington?
It was an experience, I put it that way. it's kind of like the Clipper team. We had a lot of guys that was going in different directions. So we really, we had Rod Strickland there who was supposed to be the best player there. And it was just hard to get those guys together. It was like, okay, we win a game and a couple of guys won't show up for practice the next day. So Rod Strickland really didn't like to practice. So you never know what you're going to get from him at that time. So that team was, if I had to do it over again, I probably would have passed on that situation and waited for a better opportunity. But when you get a chance to become a head coach, you can't pick and choose. And that probably was one of the mistakes that I made. But I ended up coaching in the NBA and becoming a head coach, and it just didn't work out. It never really got a chance to put the team together that we wanted to put together because the owner sold the team. Part of the team, and they end up making a lot of changes when he brought in Michael as the general manager, and that didn't work out. So, and it took them a while to recover from all of that, but it was I give them it was experience. A. Poland, he really liked me. He said, "I want you to coach this team," and so it worked out well.
Next stop, the ATL. Let's go downtown, the Omni Hotel, CNN. You look at the basketball arena right there. Take us inside the arena there, and you're back home in the great state of Georgia, and you are guiding the Atlanta Hawks. What was that like for you?
It was, I always wanted to play in Atlanta, never got a chance to play in Atlanta. So I got a chance to coach there, and I think I was on the golf course, I think, and I got a call from Lon Kruger, who just got the job there and wanted me to be one of his assistants. And so, I couldn't turn that down because I got a chance at least to be a part of the city and part of the Hawks. It was a good experience. Lon coming out of college, so it was a different situation here. So he had to prove himself to the players. And, the team wasn't that good, I should say that much. So, but we over the course of time, we kind of everything worked out pretty good, but it just didn't work out for him and the coaching staff because I think he didn't last very long. But we formed a great relationship while I was in Atlanta with Lon, and so he was the type of guy that you got to love the guy. He was the type of guy that loved everybody. And so when he offered me the job and we talked and I took the job, and he kind of explained to me what he wanted to do. And so I kind of talked to him a little bit about the player, about the NBA, because that's his first job in the NBA. And so it worked out really well. The relationship that I formed with him at that time is still strong today. So I give him credit for that. Just too bad that it didn't work out because he didn't really, I think, got a fair chance of being, a head coach in the NBA for a long period of time.
Life after the NBA, life after basketball, as you move forward, take us into what it's like these days and play golf and really enjoy yourself and your family. And what is it like these days for you?
Well, when I first retired from basketball, I had two young kids. So I got a chance to watch them grow up, so it was fun. And then they got a chance to see me work as a coach, in Dallas and everywhere else. So they had fun because they felt that they were special. But, and after that, after finished coaching, I just kind of like, hey, I've done it all. Now I think I just want to try to just kind of relax and watch them grow up. And they all went to college. So I got a chance to see my son play in college at Penn State. My daughter gave up basketball in high school, but, she went to Hampton. So, it was kind of fun, because I got a chance to spend a lot more time with my family, with my mom, who was at that time was kind of sick. So I got a chance to spend a lot of time with her. And now, I'm just out in Phoenix, just kind of relaxing, recovering. When I tell you about my back, it finally caught up with me. So I had back surgery about 2 years ago. And now I'm just here recovering and enjoying the sunshine. And every now and then I try to get down and hit the golf ball.
Awesome. when you look at the current NBA, guys are not posting up as much. You're seeing pick and pop, you're seeing screens being set, and guys are letting it fly. They're shooting 3-pointers, just all the time. Take us into this game, what you see so far.
Well, I see a lot of European game in the NBA today, and the 3-point shot is taken over from everything else. And the one thing about the 3-point shot, it can shoot you in the game and shoot you out of a game. And what I see now is that you have some great 3-point shooters, but you also have some guys that think they're 3-point shooters. So, and they end up taking some shots at the time that end up costing their team. But it's just like the game now is more like 3-point pick and roll. The big guy is almost non-existent in the league now. It's hard to find a team that had a big guy. Denver have a big guy that can post up, but you rarely find guys that are posting up now. It's all about pick and roll, shooting the 3. And I think the league now figure out that I'd rather take a 3 than a 2 because I got a chance to, if I make the 3, I'm okay. And I just don't see the game the way they see it now. I think they shoot too many 3s, at the wrong time. I think the right guys can shoot them anytime they want to, but a lot of guys, they think they're open, so they want to shoot 3s, and they have no chance of making those. But that's the way the league is now. You make 1 or 2 3s, you think you're a 3-point shooter. Everybody want to be Steph Curry now, so it doesn't work that way.
Coach, back in the days, the top 8 seeds went into the playoffs. Now you have 8 seeds in the playoffs, but you also have the play-in game format, whereas team 9 and 10, those teams are able to battle out to try to get into the playoffs through desperation, through those series, the elimination process. When you look at the current setup, what do you see?
I like the old style. I like if you're the top 8, you should be in the playoffs. I think you have a whole season to get to that position. So if you get lucky and become, in the playoff and win a couple of games, well, I think it hurt the team that was there the whole year. And I think it's good for the rating for the NBA, because they get extra games for TV. But I just like the old style. If I play 82 games and if I'm number 7 and 8, I want to be in the playoff. I don't have to play an extra game or 2 to get into the playoffs.
Hey, Coach, as we look at the top teams right now, Golden State is in the 1 seed at 29 and 7. Your Phoenix Suns are the 2 seed, 29 and 8, only a half a game behind. The Utah Jazz are 3. Memphis is 4. Denver Nuggets at the 5 spot. Your Dallas Mavericks are 6. The LA Lakers are 7th, and the Clippers, another franchise you play with in Buffalo, are the 8 seed. Minnesota 9, and Sacramento is 10. When you look at this current playoff seeding in these teams, what do you see?
Well, I think Golden State, Phoenix, and probably Utah, the 3 top team in the West, and it's going to be hard for a team to catch them. Memphis is a dark horse. I never thought they would be that good this year, but I have to give them credit for number 4. And I think if they keep playing the way they're playing, they're going to be okay. But Denver is going to move up. I think people are still down on the Lakers, but I think the Lakers are going to move up to probably 5 or 6. If once they get Anthony Davis back, they should move up. But I think it's going to be a dogfight for the last 4 or 5 spots. I think the top 3 spots are pretty much locked in. It's going to be a battle all the way down the wire with Golden State, Utah, and Phoenix. Everybody's talking about Golden State, Phoenix, but no one is giving Utah a lot of credit, and they are pretty good too. And don't go to sleep on Memphis. They're young, but they're hungry.
Coach, LeBron James, can you talk about that gentleman as a talent? Every time you look up, he's breaking another record. He's able to play at a high level, and I'm sure he has a trophy case that's unreal. Can you just speak about LeBron James?
He is the best I've seen all around. I mean, he can do almost anything he wants to do. He can score, he can rebound, he can pass the ball, and he used to be a very, very good defensive player. But that type of talent comes along probably once in a lifetime. and you have to enjoy it. But I really enjoy watching him play. I think he's starting to develop his three-point shot, because as you get older, you can't, go in there and pound like you did when you're young guys. So he know how to adjust his game to fit his style. And health-wise, he's taking care of his body. But the main thing about him, he has a great mind for basketball. He knows the game, and he knows the situation when you're in a situation, what to do. And if I have to think about all the players that I've seen play over time, I've had to put him at the top, because he could do a lot more than the rest of the guys. You had guys that could score, guys that could rebound, but you never had a guy that could play an all-around game like he's playing. And he's probably going to be one of the top players in every category by the time he finished playing.
Coach, how good was Michael? I remember him as a ball boy, getting shoes and autographs and what have you, and watching him compete. How good was Michael Jordan? He
was great. He was the guy that took the game to another level. He was fantastic. And, he was a guy that you couldn't guard. He was, at first in Bird and Magic, when Micah took over from those guys, it elevated to another level. And I don't think anybody has done much for the game as he did while he was playing. And, then you have to put, after he left, LeBron took it to another level. So, but Michael, everybody say he's the best ever. I think he was the best in his generation. I think when he started playing, the one thing people don't realize, in the early day, there was no TV. So you didn't get a chance to see guys play. Maybe the Celtics and the Lakers and the Sixers and the Knicks were the 4 teams that you always saw on TV. But once the TV kind of expanded, you see guys play every night now. So you can see how good they are. And it's kind of a shame that you didn't see how good the older guys were. But in the new generation, I think you had to put Michael, Kobe, LeBron, Magic, Bird, those guys in a different category than the older guys.
Coach Hurd, talk a little bit about the late, great Kobe Bean Bryant. He was a guy like Michael who was coming to the arena for a purpose. He wanted to win, and he was coming in, and I'll use the Dr. J analogy. He was coming in to operate and try to get it done.
Yes. He had that killer mentality, and when he stepped on the court, it was about winning. It was about defeating you, about beating you up, about killing you. And that was his mentality. And talent-wise, he could do a lot of things too. But he was a guy that was probably mentally tougher than anybody that I see play when he was out there. Because, when he wanted to do something, you couldn't stop him from doing it. He was kind of like Michael. He developed shots as he got older. He developed his game to a part where he could do basically whatever he wants to. And like you say, Dr. J said, he come to operate, and he operated a lot. It was kind of sad the way things happened. But, if I had to pick certain guys I want to watch play, Kobe would have been one, Michael, LeBron, Magic, Bird. That's the younger guy. The older guys, I love to watch guys like Wilt, Elgin, Russell, Jerry West, Oscar Robertson. That's in a different category, but I grew up watching those guys. But the younger generation, I have to put those guys that I just named, and I would probably pay to watch them. And I normally wouldn't pay to watch an NBA game, but those guys I would pay to watch.
Coach, the debate continues, and we've watched Steph Curry shoot the ball from half court, and his jumper is, as the young people say, is wet. I mean, he can really shoot the basketball and revolutionize the game. And we know what his father did in Dale Curry.
Right.
Can you talk about Steph when you see him as a competitor? And again, the ability to shoot the ball from anywhere he wants to.
Yeah, and everybody get hung up on how he shoot the ball, where he shoot the ball from. But if you watch his game, he can get his shot anytime he wants to. He can also drive the ball to the basket. He can get inside, hit the mid-range shot. So he had the type of game, and he never stopped moving. He kind of remind me of Havlicek when he don't have the ball. He's always moving to get open. And he, no question about it, he's the best shooter ever. I can't compare anybody as well as shooting the ball the way he does. He has range. He can hit from mid-range, and he also can get his teammates involved. So I have to give him credit right now. And I don't see anybody topping what he's doing as far as shooting the basketball, because it's unreal. You know, you never thought you'd see a guy just raise up from where he's shooting the ball from. And the thing that I hope that doesn't happen, because he don't get worn down this year. Maybe when Clay come back, that'll take some of the pressure off of him, because right now he's pretty much doing it all on his own, basically. All the scoring. So he get worn down. He's not shooting a great percentage like he used to, and I think that's got a lot to do with him not getting a lot of rest.
Coach Hurd, the Eastern Conference, as it stands right now, your Chicago Bulls are the top seed, number one. They're 25-10. Brooklyn Nets are in second, 23-12, 2 games behind. The Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis, they're in third. They're 25-14. Miami's the 4th seed. Your Philadelphia 76ers are 5th. Cleveland is 6th. Your Washington Wizards are 7. Charlotte's in the 8th seed. And of course, in terms of play-in, Toronto is 9, and the Celtics are 10. Take us through the East and what you see there.
I think, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but I think when it comes down to it, health is going to be a big key in both the West, East, and the West. But if teams stay healthy, I think that the Nets will probably end up on top, because Chicago is playing great right now. But I think the Nets have a lot more talent, especially with Kyrie coming back. I don't expect the Celtics to be all the way down where they are now. Philly should move up. They're going to be okay. They really missed Simmons, but I think they learned how to play without him now. Chicago is going to be a battle. Miami is going to be a battle when they get healthy too. So I think the East is going to, as they go down the wire, and I always say that the season doesn't start after the All-Star break. That's when everybody gets serious, and you find out, which teams are going to be there at the end. And I think those 4 teams is going to be there at the end. And then the second half, Milwaukee, don't count out Milwaukee. They could end up winning it again. So I think this is going to be a great year for playoff teams. Once they get the team set, I think it'll be a great year. The matchups is going to be a big problem. But I wouldn't rule out Milwaukee, the Nets, and Philly as one of the top 3 teams in the East.
Coach, in closing, the Phoenix Suns, do you feel like the Suns will be shining late in the year? And how far do you see Phoenix going?
I think they're going to do quite well the rest of the year. I think that nemesis is going to be Golden State, because if Golden State get those 2 guys back, then that's going to be that nemesis, because the only thing I think Golden State missing right now is size. And, they get Wayman back and they get Clay back, then they can compete. But Utah's always a danger, because they have size, they have young guys that can play. But I still think it's going to go down the wire between Phoenix and Golden State. And those 2 teams is going to be there. One of those teams, I think, going to get to the finals.
Coach, in closing, are there any final comments you'd like to make as the audience gets to hear from the great Mr. Gar Hurd?
Well, I always felt that I was blessed, like a small-time guy from Georgia in the 60s, and ended up in the situation that I was in. Got a chance to play for and work with some of the great coaches in the world. Got a chance to see the greatest player that ever played basketball. So to me, I've been living a dream, and I really appreciate all the things that happened, and because I have a great family. So I've been blessed, I'm just blessed that I'm able to sit around and talk about basketball and watch basketball and see the young guys, how they, how they grow, and not only talk about basketball, but they were, actually spend a lot of time dealing with life, helping people, and I think that's the whole key, because if you're able to do that, and then you really accomplish a lot.
Coach Hurd, in closing, you grew up in Georgia, and the civil rights movement was right down the street. Auburn, the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Can you talk about your impressions of the civil rights movement and Dr. King as we approach his birthday once again?
Well, when I was in high school, we really didn't, we knew about it, but it's almost like a black and white situation. You're on this side or you're on that side. and blacks on this side, whites on that side. So I really didn't get a chance to participate a lot into that because my parents were very protective of us. They gave us the rules, what we need to do, what we couldn't do. So I got a chance to study a lot with Dr. King when I got to college. And I will forget the year that he was killed. That was the year I was landing in the hospital with a knee operation. So I got a chance to watch that, and then did a lot of study about him then. But he was great. He was one of the reasons why we got a chance to do the thing that we're doing now. And you just can't give him a lot of credit. You can give him a lot of credit for what happened during that time because he sacrificed his life so everybody else can have a great life.
Well, folks, there you have it from Gar Hurd. He is